Hey guys, my name is Jonakis and welcome to my top 10 horror games. I have been always wanted to do a top 10 list for a while now, and I thought what better way to go ahead and do that by doing my top 10 horror games, which is pretty much my all-time favorite video game genre of all time. So, especially with it being Halloween, October, I thought this is like the perfect time to go ahead and do that. So with me, I have 10 of my all-time favorite horror games plus 3 honorable mentions. So we have 13 games here. I'm actually going to go ahead and do one game per franchise because if I don't, I feel like the whole list is pretty much just going to be Resident Evil because it's my all-time favorite franchise. I guess spoiler alert for what my number one might potentially be, but I'm not going to tell you which game is my favorite just yet. So I'm actually going to go ahead from the very bottom all the way to the top. And we're going to go ahead and start with my number 13. So for 13th place, I have over here with me Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly for the PS2. So I actually played through the whole Fatal Frame series back, I believe it was senior year of high school. I played, well, it was mostly just 1, 2, and 3. I haven't played 4 because it never came here to the West. And also, I believe back then, Fatal Frame 5 wasn't a thing yet. So even though Fatal Frame 5 is going to be coming out soon, there's going to be like a physical version that's coming out to the West as well. I might actually even play that on my channel, by the way, we'll see. But Fatal Frame 2 is definitely my favorite of the 3 that I've played. To me, Fatal Frame 1 was a good game, but definitely didn't surpass Fatal Frame 2 for me. And Fatal Frame 3 was kind of just an okay game. Fatal Frame 2, I think, was the strongest of the 3. I think it had the most intriguing story, especially following the two twins, Mio and Mayo. And also the ghosts that you face, the areas that you go through, I think were really good, better than the other 3. Fatal Frame 3 kind of just like dragged out a bit for me. I think Fatal Frame 2 had like the best like balance between everything that the game had in the whole series. So I definitely did enjoy Fatal Frame 2 the most, and that is my 13th favorite horror game. So for number 12, I have the big boy here. We got Little Nightmares, and I have here a collector's edition that has 6, a little statue of 6 inside. This came out back in 2017, and I knew absolutely nothing about the game back when I got it. And it was a pleasant surprise playing through it and getting really enraptured in the whole game. It's kind of just like a short game. You can beat it in like 2-3 hours if you know what you're doing. But it still is honestly such a fantastic experience. You play as this little character called Six, and she's trying to get to the end of this whole thing and figuring out where she's at. And the monsters that you face in that game are like 10 times the size of you, but it's so cool the scenes that happen in the game. You're trying to run away from them and trying to outsmart them. It's also like very puzzle heavy, so I do enjoy that. I do enjoy whenever horror games have puzzle mechanics in them. That's why Resident Evil is like one of my all-time favorite series. And yeah, Little Nightmares was actually like a real pleasant surprise. I enjoyed it through and through back in 2017. There also is a sequel for the game called Little Nightmares 2. I have not played it. I have played the DLC of the first game, but I have not played the sequel yet. Maybe one of these days I might actually play it on my channel for the first time and see if I like it just as much or even more than this first game. But as it stands right now, Little Nightmares 1 is my 12th favorite horror game. And so now for my 11th place, before we get into the top 10, I'm gonna go ahead and just quickly talk about Alice Madness Returns. So I played this, I think it was my junior year of high school, so I think it was before I even played the Fatal Frame games. And some people don't really consider Alice Madness Returns or the American McGee Alice games to be really horror, but I would definitely say that Alice Madness Returns is like a mix of hack and slash and survival horror, or psychological horror rather. And I gotta say, I definitely love the world that American McGee created when it came to the Alice series. The way that he envisions Alice with the characters of Cheshire Cat, Mad Hatter, Queen of Hearts, all of it was like really cool going through the game and seeing these characters. And I especially like this game a lot too because the story is really immersive, as well as I like the cosmetics that you get, the dresses you get for Alice. Every time you go into a new level, she always wears something different, and I always thought that was a really cool, neat feature for the game. I also really thought that the battle system was really cool too. Some of the weapons you get in the game are really fun to use, like the Vorpal Blade, the horse, the hobby horse, I believe it was called. Those were like some really cool weapons. I also like the first American McGee's Outlast, although it is extremely difficult. It has such a high difficulty curve. At one point, it's just like, there was a point where it took me like days to try and beat because it was just so difficult. I feel like this game though achieved a good balance of difficulty as well as fun. So yeah, Alice Madness Returns, my 11th favorite horror game. So now we are gonna get into my top 10 horror games. So this is starting out, number 10 for me is actually gonna go ahead and be Remothered Tormented Fathers. I played this for the first time, I believe it was 2 years ago, or was it last year? I think it was 2 years ago. I played through Remothered Tormented Fathers as well as its sequel Broken Porcelain, and I gotta say, between the two, definitely Remothered Tormented Fathers I think is the strongest of the two. If I'm not mistaken, I think there's going to be a third game coming out at some point, because I think they said it's going to be a trilogy. I might be wrong, but so far I've only played these two. Broken Porcelain, I remember being kind of buggy when it first launched. I don't know if they patched it and made it better, but I definitely gotta say Tormented Fathers was not as buggy, and overall it's kind of like a Clock Tower game. If you've ever played a Clock Tower game, or if you've never have, it's kind of like you're pretty much hiding from a stalker. There's always a stalker in each level, and you kind of want to hide away from them because you can't really fight back. And it pretty much has like this kind of like chase music, sort of like Dead by Daylight in a way, where the closer they are to you, the more intense the music gets, and when they actually find you and are chasing you, the chase music just like ramps up. And I always love that about the games. I love that whole dynamic of trying to hide from them and just hearing the music get more and more intense as they're like closing in on you. I would have to go ahead and say that I definitely prefer Remothered over Clock Tower. Unfortunately, I do like Clock Tower a lot, especially First Fear. The First Fear is my favorite Clock Tower game, but I do think that Remothered kind of modernized the series and made it really intense and really awesome, for lack of a better word. Unfortunately, there hasn't been really a new Clock Tower game since Clock Tower 3 for the PS2, so although I do enjoy Clock Tower, again, First Fear and Clock Tower 3 I think were my favorite ones. But yeah, Remothered Tormented Fathers. If you guys like Clock Tower but have never played Remothered, I highly recommend it for you. I highly recommend it for anybody, honestly, who wants to play like a new take on like a horror game. Definitely try out Remothered Tormented Fathers. So for my 9th place, I actually don't have a physical for this game because it's digital only, and it's also a demo. So PT, good old PT. I'm pretty sure this game needs no introduction. I'm pretty sure a lot of you who love horror games know PT. It is a game that came out, I believe, in 2014 or 2013, one of those, for the PS4, and it was a playable teaser for an upcoming Silent Hill game. Unfortunately, the game is no longer available, so you can't really play it unless you buy a PS4 that has PT in it. They took it out of the store, so you really can't get it that way. But honestly, if you... it's kind of hard to recommend it because you'd have to buy a whole PS4 for it, unfortunately. But it is for a demo, it is such a great experience that even so many different developers, like indie developers, have made games inspired by it. And not just indie developers, even like AAA. Like I would say like Resident Evil 7 from Capcom was heavily inspired by PT. Then you have like other ones like Locked Up, Allison Road, which I don't know if that game is ever coming out. I think that game got canceled, I'm not sure. But there's a lot of games that honestly got inspired by PT, and for good reason. It is a great game that pretty much takes place in only one hallway, but in that one hallway you have a whole like hour to 2 hours packed of scares, and it's honestly such a perfect game to play in Halloween. Unfortunately, again, not available anymore, but if you are in any way able to play it and haven't yet, I highly recommend it. PT is such a great game, and it is my 9th favorite horror game. So we got on number 8 now, we have good old Dead Space. I love the first Dead Space the most. Dead Space 2 is also really good. Dead Space 3, You could kind of take it or leave it. It's okay. It's not like horrible, but it's not as good as the first two. But I definitely have to say, I think the first Dead Space is the scariest, especially the events that happen with Isaac and his wife throughout the game. Some really cool Easter eggs that the game has really stood out to me throughout the years. And also, the game is getting a remake soon, so I'm super excited for whenever that comes out, because I definitely want to play that on the channel. If you guys are interested in that, then please do give my channel a follow, because I definitely will be playing that day one for sure whenever that comes out. Dead Space 1, great game, takes place in space. I like the whole mechanic that you don't really go for headshots in this game. As in other shooters, you pretty much have to cut off limbs. That's how you kill the monsters in this game. You have to cut off their arms, you have to cut off their legs. That's the only way to kill them. If you just go for headshots, you're not going to really get any successful with it. So great game, highly recommend it if you have not played it and like shooter horror games. Okay, so on my 7th place we have, well, I have over here the collection of Outlast games. So this actually has Outlast 1, the Whistleblower DLC, and Outlast 2, but the game that I want to talk about is Outlast 2. So most people, if you were to ask what their favorite Outlast game is, most people would say Outlast 1, for a good reason. It's a great game, but I have to say Outlast 2 is my preferred of the two. I definitely had the most enjoyment playing through that game, and eventually when I got really good with the game and I was able to kind of speedrun it, it was like one of my favorite things ever. Kind of just like speedrunning through the game, trying to like not use any batteries for the achievements and everything. I love the story of the game as well. I just really like it a lot. That's all I can really say. Like, honestly, Outlast 2 was such an enjoyable experience that even like today, I think back on it a lot, and I always get the urge to like play it again, but I haven't really played it in a while, so who knows, maybe one of these days I might probably play it on my channel. And that's my number 7, I believe, right? So my number 6 is a good old game called Until Dawn. And I always think back to this game because this game came out in 2015, and it is insane to think about. The game still today looks so amazing. It is crazy how great this game looks, and it's basically an interactive drama type of game, kind of a coin turned by David Cage. So similar to kind of like Detroit Become Human, Heavy Rain, Indigo Prophecy, all of those, but it's a horror take on that. So that automatically puts points up for me. I love horror. I love David Cage games, so kind of having like a mix of the two is so good. It's not made by David Cage, by the way. It's by Supermassive Games, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, Supermassive Games. So they went ahead to make the Dark Pictures games, so Man of Medan, Little Hope, House of Ashes, and I think there's a new one coming out at some point. They went ahead and made those games, but I only played Man of Medan out of the Dark Pictures games. I haven't played any of the other ones, but Until Dawn was so good. I love the whole take of like a B-slasher movie styled game where pretty much you have these 8 high school kids who are vacationing in this snowy cabin, and there's a killer in the loose. And then the game goes for a turn a few hours in that you don't expect at all, and it is just crazy intense, scene after scene. It's just so good. If you guys have never played Until Dawn, do yourselves a favor and play this game. You only need to play it once. It's not that long either. It's up to you the way you play it, if the characters survive or they die, and you pretty much can try different playthroughs out where you have every character survive. You can have a playthrough where every character dies, and the story just changes depending on what happens. So Until Dawn is a great experience that I still feel like even if you've played it once, you could definitely go back to and experience something new that you haven't seen before. And that is my number 6. So for number 5, we have here a little game known as Evil Within 2. Evil Within 1, also a great game, don't get me wrong, but I do think that they mastered the formula with Evil Within 2. It's very similar to Resident Evil. In fact, I believe it was made by Shinji Mikami. I might be wrong in saying that. I think the first one was, at least. I don't know if the second one was. But I believe Evil Within 2 was made by Shinji Mikami, which is the creator of Resident Evil. So that's another great thing about it that I absolutely love. And especially kind of filling in this list where I'm trying to be like, oh, like, you know, one game per franchise, I get to kind of cheat a little bit. It's like, yeah, but there's this other game that's not Resident Evil, but also made by this creator. So I'm really excited to bring this game in because I absolutely adored it back in 2017. And honestly, I would love to kind of give it a replay at some point, maybe here on the channel too. So we'll see. All right, so now we're at the 4th game. And for my 4th place, I have Dead by Daylight. So this one, I mean, some people don't really say it's horror, but it is. Like, let's be honest, Dead by Daylight is a horror game. It's just a multiplayer horror game, and it's kind of strange because there's not like a game like Dead by Daylight. There's other ones like, I mean, there's a new game called VHS, I believe, and last year there was Home Sweet Home. There's other games that attempted to try the formula of Dead by Daylight, although they weren't as successful. Although we'll see with VHS because that's a new one, so that game does show promise. But Dead by Daylight has been pretty much my guilty pleasure for a few years now. I always play Dead by Daylight on my free time. I enjoy the characters a lot. I love the survivors. I love all the killers that you get to play as. It's so fun playing as each one and kind of figuring out their powers, kind of mastering the ones that you're really into. There's days where I feel like I have to do other stuff, but I just get so tempted to play Dead by Daylight that I just can't help it. So Dead by Daylight is definitely a guilty pleasure for me. I love the game to bits, and yeah. Honestly, I think after I finish recording this, I'm probably gonna play some more Dead by Daylight. So let's see what the future holds here. I also play it a lot on my channel too. Whenever there's a new chapter, I like to kind of cover it. And I'm actually gonna be recording a new gameplay video soon because a new survivor, Michaela, came out pretty recently. So I kind of want to showcase her to you guys. But yeah, Dead by Daylight. I am a Huntress main. If you guys were curious about it by any means, I main Huntress and I also main David for the survivors. So good old Dead by Daylight. I could never put this game down, I swear. I always have it back there in like the piles of games that I have right here. It's always right here. These are like the games I'm currently playing, so it has not left that spot for years. Alright, so for my number 3, I have a good old game, Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Guys, this is my first ever Let's Play that I've ever done on my channel, my first ever video, back when I was like a serious nervous wreck. Recording videos for the first time. I started with a game that I was comfortable with, and that was Amnesia: The Dark Descent. So this was a great 2012 game, I think. 2011, 2012, one of those. 2010? I don't know. I'm not sure, but it's definitely a wonderful game. I believe it's a game that kind of brought horror back after a huge hiatus of like horror games not coming out for a while. A lot of people thought like horror was dead, and then like Amnesia: The Dark Descent came out and kind of brought horror back into the limelight. So we kind of had this game to thank for a lot of us horror fans. Great game. And it has a few sequels. It has Amnesia Justine, which is an expansion of the first game. Also, I have that on my channel as well. And also A Machine for Pigs, which I also have on my channel. In case you guys want to see the Amnesia series, I actually have every single game Let's Played on my channel. So I will give you this disclaimer though. It's kind of my it's my earlier videos, so they're not as good, but I definitely played them and enjoy the heck out of them. But especially the first game. I think the first game is the strongest. I believe there's also another game, Soma, which came out I think in 2015 by the same developers, but to me nothing surpasses The Dark Descent. I think The Dark Descent is honestly a masterpiece when it comes to a first-person horror game. That's why I have it so high up as my number 3. Alright, so guys, so for my number 2, I have good old Silent Hill 2. Honestly, I like a lot of Silent Hill games. I think the first 4, Silent Hill 1, 2, 3, and 4, were great games. A lot of people would say the first 3, but I think Silent Hill 4 also deserves some love. Silent Hill 2 though is definitely no hesitation the best Silent Hill game. The story, especially following James Sunderland, it still is such, it's so bittersweet to think back on it, and especially when it comes to like the ending. Silent Hill 2 is just such a great experience, you guys. If you are horror fans and have not played the Silent Hill games at all, I highly recommend play Silent Hill 2. Don't play the HD collection if you can help it. I believe it came out for the 360 and the PS3. If you could, avoid that and play the original PS2 one, or the one for the Xbox, the original Xbox, Restless Dreams. It has a sub scenario where you get to play as Maria in that game. Definitely play like the older ones, but if you can't, then I guess the HD collection would work. It just had like some bugs and stuff. So, but Silent Hill 2, God, it just made me fall in love with the series. That was the first game I played, was Silent Hill 2, and then I played Silent Hill 3, which is my second favorite of the games. Just do yourselves a favor if you haven't, play it and fall in love with it, because I definitely did. And last but not least, so for my first place, I actually am going to cheat a little bit. I'm bringing two games. Both of them are from the Resident Evil series, as I pretty much spoiled early on. I'm going to show you one that is survival horror, and that is Resident Evil 1 Remake. So the original Resident Evil remade on the GameCube is my favorite survival horror game, but my actual favorite horror game is not a survival horror game, it's an action horror game, and that is good old Resident Evil 4. Guys, I love this game so much. I love this game to bits. It is my third favorite video game of all time. It's not my favorite, but it is my third favorite video game of all time. Top 3 out of like 500 plus games that I've played in my life. I love Resident Evil 4. I've played this game like over dozens of times. I love the extras, the mercenaries mode, assignment Ada, separate ways, all those extra modes that you have in the game. Although it wasn't in this one, I think only this one had assignment Ada, it didn't have the separate ways. But I do own pretty much every version of Resident Evil 4. I have the PS4 version, I have the Xbox One version, I have PS2, Wii, this GameCube version, I have for the 360, for the PS3. I love this game so much that I literally bought every version of the game. So good old Resident Evil 4, following Leon Scott Kennedy trying to rescue the president's daughter. And then yeah, the other Resident Evil game, Resident Evil 1 Remake. I played this for the first time, I think I was like 9 years old, but I was way too scared, so I ended up selling it. And then I ended up picking it back up in 2012, and I did like a whole marathon of Resident Evil, which I'm actually doing on my channel, by the way. If you guys are interested in seeing every mainline Resident Evil game played, I am doing every single mainline game on my channel, but I actually did the Resident Evil marathon back in 2012 when I was 18 years old, and it's playing through the entire Resident Evil series was such a treat, guys. The very first Resident Evil game that I ever played was actually the original Resident Evil Director's Cut, back when I was like 4 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, one of those. And I never really got far into it. I only got to the part where, as Chris, you meet Rebecca in the save room. It took all the way until 2012 for me to actually play through every single Resident Evil game. So, guys, I love Resident Evil to bits, and those are definitely my two favorite. I have actually a whole like tier list of Resident Evil. If you guys are ever interested, maybe one of these days I might release it as a video where I kind of tier list every single Resident Evil game from my favorite to my least favorite. And yeah, that's pretty much my top 10 or 13, I guess, horror games of all time. Yeah, guys, I love horror to bits, and I'm always excited to try out new horror games. If you have any recommendations, then please let me know. There are several games I have on my mind that I definitely want to play on my channel, but it might take some time to get to them. Currently, I am trying to finish up this Resident Evil marathon on my list. I still have the rest of Chris's scenario to edit and upload. That's going to take a bit. I'm playing Insound Mind right now, and also I have Summer 58 that I still have to record and upload. We will get to that. Besides that, I also upload occasional Dead by Daylight and also monthly game pickups. So if those are things that you're interested in, then please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel, and I will be back with the next video up on my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching this though. I hope you enjoyed. Do let me know also, what are your favorite horror games? You can give me a top 3, top 5, top 10 if you guys want, or just say what your favorite horror game down is in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching this video though, and I'll see you later.